Good day, students. This is about constructor chaining, which you'll find on page 417 in your textbook. Before we look at the discussion, let's go to page 453 in your textbook, just to explain that you get different levels of inheritance in code. It depends on the project that you have to do. In this example, Golden Delicious has a superclass apple. An apple has a superclass fruit, which shows that you can inherit from different superclasses. With that as background, let's go back to page 417, where they talk about calling the constructors of superclasses. The super brackets keyword, as you can see here in the first paragraph, means that you are calling the constructor of the superclass. In the diagram below this paragraph, they explain that whether you have the code super brackets typed out and whether you don't have the typed out code on the left, the same execution. In other words, the superclass constructor will be called anyway, whether you have the typed out code or whether you don't have it. If this is a subclass and it extends a superclass, that is what will happen anyway. Below this diagram, there's a paragraph with an important paragraph. It says, when constructing an object of a subclass, the subclass constructor first invokes its superclass constructor before performing its own tasks. So the statement super, that you can see in the diagram above, will always be executed first by a subclass before it does its own code. Let's look at the example at the bottom of the page. Firstly, let's just see what it contains, the program that is provided. It has a faculty class which extends an employee superclass. So it means faculty is the subclass, employee is the superclass. And the code for the faculty class is given statement 1 to 9, up to 9. Then below that, you've got code for the faculty subclass, statement 11 up to statement 20. That's the code for the employee superclass for faculty. In statement 11, you extend to the person superclass. And then below that, in this employee class, you've got two constructors. Statement 12 up to 15, it's the no argument constructor for employee. And then statement 17 to 19, you have another constructor. So there you have no parameters. Statement 12, it's a constructor. And then statement 17, you've got another constructor with a string as a parameter. Statement 11 states that there's another superclass. So from statement 22 up to next page, statement 26, you've got the code for the person superclass. All right, so with all of that, let's go back and see how the statement 1, the faculty class, subclass, extends the employee superclass. It goes to statement 2, the main method, and executes statement 3. Statement 3 will invoke an object of this subclass faculty. Now remember what we said here. When constructing an object of a subclass, the subclass constructor first invokes the superclass constructor before performing its own task. So the faculty jump to or go to the employee superclass and execute the superclass constructor. So whether there's a statement that calls that constructor or not, it will happen automatically. So statement 7 will not be executed. At the moment, the faculty subclass will first jump to the employee superclass and execute the no argument constructor. So it will jump to or transfer control to statement 11. That is the employee superclass extends the person superclass. So when it gets to statement 12, the constructor, the no argument constructor, will first execute or call the person constructor, the superclass constructor. It won't execute statement 13 and 14 yet. It will first go to the superclass and execute its constructor, its no argument constructor. So control will be transferred at this stage to statement 22, which class has no superclass of its own. So it will go to statement 23, that's the no argument constructor. There's no call to another superclass because it doesn't extend to another superclass. So statement 24 will be executed at this stage. In the display area below this code, you can see that is what will be displayed. Statement 1 performs person's task, as you note here in statement 24. So once this state will go back to the employee class, because remember control did go from statement 12 to the person class. Now it comes back to statement 12 and it starts executing its own code. It did the superclass constructor, now it starts executing its own code. Statement 13 has a this keyword. This without a dot means that this constructor is calling another constructor in the same class. We've got overloaded constructors. Two constructors with the same name but different parameter lists. This without a dot will call the other constructor. Statement 17. Statement 17 has a constructor that wants a string as a parameter. So statement 13 will jump to statement 17 and take along the string. The string will go into variable S. Statement 18 will now execute or print or display, in other words, number 2, invoke employee's overloaded constructor. Then after that, transfer will go back to statement 13 and the next statement 14 will be executed, which is 3 performs employee's task. Once this is done, control will go back to the faculty. Remember, it jumped from faculty to the employee superclass. Now it goes back to faculty and it executes statement 7, which is number 4, performs faculty's task. So in this example, you can see how the super statement that they explain here, the super with brackets instruction, is executed all the time, even though the code is never typed out here. It happens automatically. The minute the subclass constructor quickly go and execute the superclass constructor and then come back to its own constructor. On the next page, you have an explanation in the paragraph below the display area. Then below that, you have explanation to see how control is transferred to all the different classes. Below the diagram, you have a very important caution kind of note, which says, remember, with inheritance, it's quite important that you remember to code. In this example, it explains why this is important. If you look at the code here, statement 1, apple extends fruit. It means apple is the subclass and fruit is the superclass. And according to the previous example, we said the minute you extend to a superclass, the constructor of the superclass, the no argument constructor, will be executed. So in the Apple class, you also have no code. So this means that there's a default no argument will happen anyway. And this no default constructor will immediately call the superclass no default constructor. Automatically, it's not coded. It happens automatically. So it will jump to or transfer control to statement 4 and go and look for in the fruit class for the no argument constructor, which is not there. So it will cause an error. The question is why? Because we said just now that the no argument constructor will always be executed. Put your own constructor, statement 5, 6, and 7. The default no argument constructor falls away. The one that's running in the background, it's not there. So the minute that you code your own constructor, you have to also code the no argument constructor to make sure that it's there in case there's a call to the no argument constructor by one of the subclasses. So below this example, they explain, always make sure, always have a no argument constructor as well as part of your code. Okay, so the next video will be about overloading and